Hello, this is Dread, and in today's video topic, now that I've talked about my recommendations for the new patch, I thought I would go around and ask a lot of my friends what their cycle's starting. So, if you don't know, over the past around 4 years of me playing this game and playing about hundreds and hundreds of builds, I have managed to create a community of like-minded individuals. These are people who play Last Epoch almost just as much as me, but the difference being I have to play a bunch of different builds to be up to date on everything, which means that I only can push things up to maybe 700 to 1,000-ish corruption at most, mainly because by the time I get there, I'm like, all right, well, we got to work on the next thing, right? Because YouTube's sitting in there in the corner with a knife and threatening me. So it's much better for me to move on. But these people, they don't have that. So they're able to play the same build for weeks, if not months. So they get to explore the more deep end of the Last Epoch endgame. And that's why I have just garnered a community of these kind of people that play the game way, way too much, just like me. And their opinions have been invaluable. They're actually friends I've had for years now. And having them around and being able to ask them questions and bounce ideas off of have been invaluable for the work that I do these days. As, of course, I don't always play Rogue, but I know people who do. I always say that, I may not know the direct answer to your question, but I definitely know at least someone who does know the answer to your question, which is really good, as it means, of course, whenever I have any mechanics question whatsoever, I can just look upon my networked, area of friends and be like, hey, how does this work? And usually come up with a pretty good answer. So that's what we're going to be doing today, is talking to my friends and asking them, hey, what are your guys' thoughts? What are you guys going to be cycle starting? So that's what this video is going to be. Builds from friends that I trust. That's another big thing. I trust. These are people I know that actually play the game. These are not people who are just trying to play Last Epoch and squeeze out a little bit of views, the new season's coming. Let me just squeeze out some views. or people who just pump out very questionable content. These are people I actually trust and play the game a lot. So that's another thing. Yeah. If you haven't already, I would heavily suggest leaving a like on the video and subscribing to the channel, as that is the best way of currently supporting me. So, with all that being said, let's go through the interviews, shall we? Also, another thing, I just want to let you know, there will be no gameplay of any of these builds, by the way, because, for me to do that, I would have to time travel and go into the future and get recordings of everyone. And sadly, my time machine stopped working the other day because I accidentally put some sugar into the gas tank. So sorry about that. Now for this section, we have another Avalanche build. It's going to be a cheesy Avalanche build by Alhweezy. Alhweezy is a good friend of mine. We've been talking for a while, and he is also an Avalanche enjoyer. Do you want to talk about what kind of Avalanche build you're going to be playing in 1.1, Mr. Alhweezy?
All right, so I'm really interested in having Earthquake create boulders and have boulders potentially become big boulders, and big boulders make Earthquake, and just keep that cycle going over and over, because that just sounds freaking sweet.
Now, this is obviously going to cost a very large amount of mana to do so. How do you plan on sustaining the mana cost? And while also you explain that, do you want to explain how the loop works?
Okay, so first off, you have, Shaman's passives are just really freaking good now, right? You have increased mana regen per attunement, so you're an attunement stacker here. As well as you have Tempest Strike, which is going to be, you have just insane attack speed, and you're just generating mana from each Tempest Strike that would cast a Tempest.
Yeah, and the reason why this works is because of the fact that you can just cast Earthquake and it does it all for you, right?
Yep.
All
automated. And then the cool thing is, obviously, you're a Tempest Strike build now, right? So you get to use Gladiator of Lagon, and you get some nice spell damage. You're attacking really fast. You're chunks are becoming chunkier and cycling through everything, and it's just in theory it looks like it's going to be doing a lot of damage, a lot of clear, and keeping your mana pretty
good. Yeah. So so the mini boulders that you summon from Earthquake Aftershocks will have a chance to become large boulders, which then create more earthquakes, which then create more aftershocks, right?
Yep.
Huh.
And the idols, as you could see, there's the idols that have a chance to create an aftershock on melee attack, and it's only 8%, right? You have 2 of them, right? So you have 16% chance. But Tempest Strike attacks so freaking fast.
It only takes so much to start it up. Yeah.
It only takes just one boulder, and you just start steamrolling everything.
Yeah,
so
it's going to be
really
very interesting to see how your mana plays out on a single target, because that's obviously going to be where this matters.
Yeah, that's why I think the mana regen situation, I'm not 100% sure like how it'll be in real world, but I think the mana regen you have, in the ideal situation you have like 20 mana regen, and earthquake, aftershocks, everything cycling. Hopefully you can maintain good positive mana.
Or
But,
if anything, even if you don't end up maintaining positive mana constantly, at least keep the loop going, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Because, like, who cares you run out of mana if everything's dead?
Everything's dead, yeah, exactly.
It's going to be interesting seeing a flurry of earthquakes and avalanche boulders on the screen. Are you ready to deal with the implications this has on your CPU?
I don't want to think about it. It's summer. It's kind of hot here. I got the AC on. I'm hoping that I don't fry my computer, but at the same time, I really just want to see how far
you can push
this can
this.
go.
Yeah,
Yeah, like it really. Shaman's been. It's not terrible, right? It wasn't terrible before, but it wasn't exactly in like I would say a healthy positive.
I think Avalanche is definitely the last piece of the puzzle.
Obviously,
obviously the passive tree changes are amazing, but like Avalanche was the cherry on top.
Yeah, Avalanche is like, dude, I can't like sing its praises enough. Like you look at the skill, you look at the damage effectiveness, you look at the nodes, and like I don't know how you can't look at Avalanche and be excited. Like honestly, I'm gonna probably try like 6 or 7 different Avalanche.
Oh yeah, and I'm gonna go with the very generic vanilla setup, and hopefully that'll do well. What's really funny with Avalanche, though, is now that we have Avalanche and Gathering Storm and all this, they're finally filling the class fantasy of Shaman in general.
Yes.
Like
I'm
destruction,
excited.
like the pure destruction at your fingertips, right? Whether that be the monsters or your CPU. Yeah, it'll be really interesting to watch your 0 FPS gameplay. We will definitely have to make a Hall of Fame episode on it eventually when you get finished with it, but I don't know.
I'm gonna need a new computer by that point.
Yeah, I don't know if people like watching just like pixels on the screen, but we'll see. We'll see how that goes. Yeah, you can always obviously turn down your P ratio all the way down to the lowest quality and play on your PS2 with your Avalanche build. Like you can do that.
Yeah, that's what I got a Steam Deck for.
Your Steam Deck would blow up. Your Steam Deck would blow up in your hands. You're actually gonna try playing this on the Steam Deck? Oh my god! You are gonna have to tell me how that goes, because that sounds hilarious. Like
I've never actually played Last Epoch on a Steam Deck, but I might be traveling sometime, so hey
guys, Alhweezy here, new video. In this video, we attempt to fry my Steam Deck by playing Avalanche Shaman in Last Epoch.
Yeah.
I don't know if you're aware of like the old Avalanche shenaniganry where like you would only go to 0 FPS. Yeah.
I played Avalanche before.
Yeah.
And I don't know. Shaman's so interesting right now. Like I think
Yeah, I
there's just
agree.
so many different shaman builds you can do, and like I mean, this is the one that I'm starting off with, but I mean, like the one that you have is something that I considered like doing like a melee like cold gathering storm or something. Like there's just so much you can do as a shaman.
Or
It's
eventually
fun.
as well, like being able to do like the just literally not doing the earthquake loop, but
Yeah,
literally doing like
just pure.
just pure avalanche with the
Yeah,
aftershock
that
nodes. Yeah.
yeah that like there's so many different ways. Like I'm if it isn't obvious, I'm really excited for
I
1.1
I
because
I am
like
excited for 1.1 as well.
there's so many things that I just want to try and be either like, wow, this is amazing, or okay.
All right, perfect. Thank you for coming on, Alhweezy, and talking about your earthquake avalanche proc shaman build. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
Anytime. So for this segment, I actually brought on a very good friend of mine. This is going to be AlmostPi. He is the kind of person that will take one build and push it to its absolute extremes every single time, or just quit the build because it sucks. Either way, it happens, right? And this time around, AlmostPi, you want to talk about what you're going to be league starting today?
I think it's probably going to end up being a little bit of flavor of the month, but yeah, I'm going to be doing Mana Stacking Sorcerer, my variation on it at least.
I couldn't have guessed.
Yeah, pretty similar to the build that Snap is running from Chunky Papa. He played it last cycle, and now it just looks even better because of all the Sorc buffs.
Yeah, the Sorc buffs definitely put it into a whole new light now, does it?
Mm-hmm.
So, your variation, what have you done to make it different?
Mostly just updating it for the new patch, as well as trying to go a little bit more tanky and solo self-found friendly. Since I'm planning on playing solo and I'm going to not be in a group, not be trading, going to be doing Circle of Fortune. So I am still going to be a little bit squishy just due to the nature of the build, but it should be good enough, I think, to just farm monos and kill all the new bosses. As I'm pretty much, my goal with Cycle Start is probably to have all of the new bosses dead by the weekend at the latest, between work and playing.
Yeah, so I see that you actually have the Avenged Lodestone Wand. What do you think of that? Do you think that's going to be better than other items in the slots, or do you think you're going to be able to get it very quickly? Like, what do you think?
Not going to be better than LP, but it's going to be the best rare wand just because of the mana spent gained as ward. It has a slight, like, 1 or 2 higher spell damage than the other highest wands, and then the mana spent gained as ward is just a better implicit than the other options there for this build. Because otherwise you're just going to have some cast speed, which you don't really need, burst damage, which does nothing, or Crystal Wand has plus 50 to 60 mana, and is the best option before this. But that also has 10 less spell damage on it on average, which is a big hit to the damage of the build.
Yeah, those Duralist Star Dials are going to be pretty good, huh?
Yeah, they're kind of silly. Every stat's going to be good. I hope to get at least 1 2LP this league with them, but it's ridiculous how hard it is to get 2LP on them.
Yeah, it is definitely very rare. I've only seen like 2 drop ever, and
Exactly.
I've been playing since it came out. So
Yeah.
yeah. And of course, the Peak of the Mountain, that should be pretty easy to get as well, obviously.
I've had horrible luck farming Peaks of the Mountain, so I'm hoping it goes better this league, but it's
Well,
deterministic and shouldn't be too bad.
COF does have the node now at the top where like you have
Yes.
the increased effect now.
I am very much looking forward to that, and hopefully it's good.
Yeah,
Yeah, I'm planning on going COF, so.
Yeah, it should be good for farming dungeon bosses specifically. Now, I see that you're running the Peak, and you, of course, you don't really have any ways of sustaining your health. Do you think you're just gonna, drink some pots? Like, what are you planning in that regard?
I mean, most of my defense is going to be ward.
Mm-hmm.
But I will be using potions with the Belt of Stars.
Yeah,
or Harbinger of Stars belt. But yeah, as far as actual health, not planning to actually take much damage on my health, and potions will cover what I do get hit by. the ward generation between Transient Rest and just the mana gained as ward, as well as the sorcerer buffed passive tree, I think will be enough.
All right, cool. Just had to make sure because running a Peak at the Mountain obviously always has its downsides.
Mm-hmm. And like I said, it is a little bit of a squishy build. Probably not the play, at least with this variation, for hardcore. Like I'm not running Flame Ward. I'm planning on running Focus just to solve mana issues early. Might have to adjust. It is a new cycle, new patch, so we'll see how it is. But
So
Sorcerer has the tools. I think it'll be fun.
for items that you're going to be aiming for from like the new Harbinger bosses, like what do you think that you're going to be focusing on specifically? Because like there are a lot of new items that definitely can assist with this build.
For this build, I'm not actually sure that any of the new items are going to be best in slot. Possibly the new Nihilus, I think it is, the amulet that has the negative rolls.
Yeah, the rolls on it. I'm going to assume that's going to drop from the Aberoth himself.
That would be my guess as well. But I mean, it has mana regen, it has more armor, it has percent increased mana, which is one of the hardest stats to get in the game. So if I can get that with LP, it'll definitely be best. Because you still are going to want crit multi, and some of the resistances are going to be on my amulet. Normally, you end up using an LP Strong Mind because it is very easy to get LP on that. But Nihilus would be excellent if I was able to get a good one.
Yeah, one of the biggest problems with those boss uniques is they are static encounters. At least the Aberoth is a static encounter that does not improve in difficulty based on your corruption, which means he also does not improve his LP chances. So if you see something with like an 85 LP chance, you know, you're going to have some fun trying to farm that. Now, the Harbingers are a little different because they like spawn into your Echo.
Yes, that'll be very nice for getting, because I get plenty of Harbingers of Stars and Transient Rest, but getting those at LP, I'm planning on using that egg thing a lot to just force LP on items, as well as the Avenged Wand that I'm planning on using comes from that. I think that'll be excellent as well.
Yeah, being able to, actually, oh, never mind. I was like, you could shove Durla Star Dolls, and I was like, no, you can't do that. I'm dumb. Oh, you could shove all your extra peaks in there that you'll drop.
Yes, extra peaks, that'll be good too. There is the new Static Orb Wand. I don't think that's going to be better.
A lot of people are hyping it up. What do you think about it?
I think it's good, but maybe not for this build. I don't know how good the tendrils are going to be. It's already mainly our single target skill anyway. So that extra AoE from the extra tendrils I don't think will matter too much. It does give an extra +3 to level lighting skills, which would be good. But it's just less damage than something like a Wrong Warp or a Marinara Wand.
Yeah, it's kind of funny because I actually saw a lot of people focus on that wand instead of going for like Wrong Warp, which was, I don't know, a cardinal sin to me because I'm like, Wrong Warp, best warp, right? Like, even with
Wrong
Warp, like, who cares?
I'll say, as far as new items go, though, I am planning on farming a couple for second and third builds. I will definitely be making a World Splitter Erasing Strike build this league.
Of course, gotta hit the whole screen, right?
Yeah. Seed of Ekadrassel, the helmet, I think is insanely strong.
Oh, I agree. I think it's going to end up becoming like one of the best defensive players we've ever seen that isn't Ward, obviously.
Yeah, it's just such a strong item defensively. It reminds me a lot of the old Fractured Crown. Not quite as good, but it's getting there.
I mean, the beautiful thing, I don't know if you know this, but you can use that on a transform build, and the rage does count for the damage taken as mana.
That's silly and probably going to be either fixed next cycle or fixed in a patch. But yeah, I did not realize that.
Yeah,
was that confirmed on like test realm or?
I have my ways. It has been tested.
Okay, nice and stuff. Because I would have assumed they learned their lesson from Kolivars, but I guess not.
I mean, this one's a little bit more interesting because like if you go too overboard with it, you'll end up like running out of rage, I guess. So it'll be interesting. I'm going to be probably
that'll be very tanky on a bear though.
Well, I'm going to be abusing it, so I'm going to be running the Avalanche build, and where I transform to Spriggan. And when I transfer into Spriggan, right, I just gain all my mana back. So it's just an emergency button, right?
Okay.
Yeah, so I think Seed of Yggdrasil is going to be a very powerful item next patch. But thank you so much for coming on AlmostPi. Thank you for giving me the third mana stacker we've seen so far. Absolutely wonderful. Got to collect them all.
Yeah, I think it'll be popular.
Hey, I think the thing is, this is good for the populace to give them a bunch of different ideas of how to go about it. So that's perfect.
Yeah, and hopefully my planner is a good like baseline for people to aim for. It's pretty bare bones. This is the planner I linked is pretty much what I'm going for on day one.
Sometimes that ends up being way better for some people specifically because they always, have challenges sometimes. But
Yeah.
Thank you for coming on, Pi. Thank you for having this talk. I will talk to you later. Hopefully you have good luck with your Peak of the Mountain drops.
Oh, fingers crossed.
Now for this section, I actually brought on the Spellblade enjoyer himself, Cyborg. Cyborg, do you want to talk about your Shatter Strike Spellblade build that you're going to be cycle starting again?
Oh, baby, do I want to talk about it? So, it's the same as usual. You just go Shatter Strike with Bloody Nib and Eye of Rain. As much attack speed as possible, stack up, get your stacks going, and pump as much damage as possible while being the squishiest man alive.
So you think you're going to be able to no-hit Aberoth?
Oh yeah, 100%.
Pog.
If what we think, like if his balance is where we think it is, which is like around 300-ish corruption, it should be like no issue. Because I can no hit timeline bosses at like 1,000 corruption with health modes and stuff.
Perfect. So what is different this patch? What has changed to make your build different this patch?
So, not a huge amount, like nothing on the surface it seems to have changed that much, but the fact that we now have Defender of Welrin and Prodigy, which both give us crit chance, Defender of Welrin giving you 8% per dexterity and Prodigy giving you 1% flat per 15 intelligence.
It means you get to greed way more, right?
Hell yeah! You don't need a Peak of the Mountain anymore. You can instead go Bone Climber Barbute, get that extra intelligence and dexterity, get even more damage than before. You don't need to go flat crit on your sword anymore. You can go flat damage. You can go flat cold damage, that is. You don't need any flat on anywhere on your whole build. Like literally you need 0 crit chance anywhere on the build except for just building attributes, basically. If you have enough intelligence and enough dexterity, you're good. No need for any crit anywhere anymore. And that was like a huge issue before, because in Shatter Strike and in Spellblade, there used to be 0 crit chance.
Yeah, it's nice to see Spellblade finally getting some love. Sadly, it's still a little shoehorned in builds per se, but it's a start, right?
For sure. Hopefully they'll rework some of the skills like Flame Weave and maybe even they did change a few nodes in Shatter Strike, but nothing really changed, honestly. Like they changed Cold Presence a little bit, and they nerfed Cold Steel actually, the crit multi node per sword. That got nerfed a little bit. It went from I think 30% per sword per point to 20% per sword per point. But that's not really a big deal, especially because you're gonna be using Eye of Rain. I actually don't even max it out anymore. I only put 2 points in it because Cold Presence got buffed. So we're putting our points into that instead, basically.
All right.
You're getting plenty of crit multi from Eye of Rain.
Is there any new uniques you might mess around with next patch with this build specifically? Anything like funny or funky, or do you think there might be any potential in one of them?
So they did change, I think, Snowblind to actually be pretty decent now. Because you have more damage against chilled enemies, more armor against chilled enemies, and more armor against blinded enemies. And you get like chance to blind, chance to chill on the helmet itself. It gives you some cold res. It's actually a pretty damn good helmet now for leveling, at least, until you can switch off to your Bone Climber Barbute. Other than that, it's really only, I don't know how to pronounce this, Nihilus, the new amulet that can give +2 to all skills. Because, you love points in Shatter Strike. It's very point heavy if you want it to be.
And that's going to be like the chase item of the league, as it has a very large roll range, and it's probably going to drop from Aberoth himself, right?
Exactly. So we're probably gonna have to kill him quite a few times to get like a good one, because it
That's
can roll +1, 2+2, and a +1 is useless. You might as well just use an Omnis.
So, since you are the man who interacts with Boss DR the most around here, at least that I know of, what do you think about the Boss DR changes and how it will affect your build? Will it actually affect your build? Will it be the same? Will it be different? Is bosses having 4 times the HP equivalent to the Boss DR now? What do you think?
So I really don't think it's gonna be a huge difference, honestly. I think the biggest difference is just gonna be that when they get the ward, it's gonna be a big bump in their health, which means it's gonna be harder to stun them. And I don't really rely on stuns, but it's quite nice when it does happen. So I'm not sure exactly how that's gonna work, because when they have a whole ward health bar, that's like them having twice their health almost. So I would assume that's gonna be a lot harder to stun them, but also before you were dealing a lot less damage once DR kicked in, which also reduced your stun chance. So I really don't know how that's gonna work, but otherwise you were dealing so much damage before that you were capping out the dynamic DR anyway, so it was almost like they had static EHP, and it's gonna be the same here, I assume, where you're gonna shred the ward so fast that the decay doesn't really play a factor, and it's basically just a static amount of EHP on each boss.
Yeah, so you're just gonna end up just grinding through them anyways, the same way.
Yeah,
before.
Exactly. The only thing is, like, now you'll leech a lot more consistently, obviously. But before I wasn't even leeching, since I was using a Peak of the Mountain. But now I will be able to, which is really nice. No need to spam potions anymore for when you're missing some health.
That new
Actually
the
save
coal, the flat health coal, it got nerfed because now bosses are gonna have ward instead of boss DR. Kappa. Totally.
True, my
Ooh.
200 health call. Oh no.
Yeah, it got giga nerfed, man, with the boss DR
no.
changes. Yeah, good luck with that. Yeah,
I'm
Shatter
gonna have to
Strike's
hit
dead.
them.
Shatter
Yeah, I'm gonna
Strike's
have to hit
dead.
them 100th of a hit more now.
All right. Well, thank you for coming on, Cyborg. Thank you for showing everyone that Spellblade still's got some spunk. So let's see what happens next patch. I'll definitely be looking forward to making a Hall of Fame video when you are done deleting Aberraths to find your Nihilus.
For sure.
All right, for this segment, I actually got FrozenSentinel on this time. He's going to be cycle starting with Frostclaw Runemaster again, because why play something different when you could play the best? Isn't that right, Frozen?
Yeah, exactly. Right and true.
So, do you want to go over why your league's starting it this time around? What changed? What got nerfed? How do you feel about the build?
Well, initially I was kind of thinking of trying something different, mix it up a little bit. But I was looking at some of the notes and I was actually kind of surprised how untouched Frostclaw ended up being. And with the huge AoE and the changes to corruption scaling, I do think that a speed clearer that can quickly AoE an entire screen at lower corruption is going to be pretty strong in 1.1 for favor farming. So Frostclaw, here we go again. And yeah, the changes actually didn't hit it very hard. Enigma is still strong, unnerfed. Frostclaw is still very strong. The mana we can deal with some new tech. And the AoE, I tested it already, and it is still quite large, almost full screen. So we're good to go.
So do you want to go into the ward changes and how it affects your build specifically? Because I'm sure
so
people
the ward
ask.
changes... Yeah, absolutely. The ward changes are huge. It's a massive nerf to Frostclaw. But keep in mind, people have been pushing to 8,000 plus corruption with, cheesing Shade, right? To be fair, but still, like they're doing echoes at 8,000 corruption with no issues with the pre-nerf. So I think even with the nerf, we're still probably going to be just fine. There is a huge hit to probably the biggest hit is Runic Invocation. Frostguard, we lose 30% DR. It's a massive hit, and all of the passives, pretty much all the passives in Runemaster either got a cap to the ward per second, or they got significantly reduced the amount you get. So there is a pretty huge nerf on that as far as ward generation. We did get a bit of a buff actually on Frostguard's ward generation, so the int scaling is higher. This is an int stack build, so you get all that. And there's also extra int nodes in Spellblade early on that are not bad, gives you a bit of ward threshold. So overall, I think we're still going to have one of the higher ward numbers of builds in the game. Sorc might end up being actually higher with some of the new mana stuff, but we'll have to see. Overall, we're going to be fine. Runemaster still has DR and stuff, so it's okay.
So another thing that I noticed with the change to the build specifically is I saw Frostclaw changed a lot. You want to go over quickly the Frostclaw changes?
Yeah, absolutely. So the main thing with Frostclaw is they did significantly, I guess I'll say, rework Gift of Winter. Previously, when you cast Frostclaw, you get 5 bounces. You get mana back on every bounce, all 5 of them. Now you only get the direct cast. So on average, that works out to about 4 mana recovered. Previously, we were at about 21 mana recovered per cast. So that meant that you could sustain indefinitely a 21 mana cost Frostclaw. Now you can only do about 6 or 7, assuming that you have a little bit of mana regen. So that is a huge, huge nerf. Fortunately, they did reduce the flat cost on some of the nodes. However, with unspecking Volley of Glass, which is a 90% multiplier, and Head of Merditis, which I forget offhand actually what it is, but it was a multiplier, we do actually end up sustaining the mana at about 6-ish mana cost. So we're losing about 8 per second, which is totally manageable. And yeah, we're still surviving, even with all the bounces and novas.
Perfect. Do you want to explain the change to Elemental Nova that made you have to change a few things around?
Yeah, so the way the skill used to work is you would path down in the Elemental Nova tree towards the fire side, and then there was a node that gave plus 250% AoE, and it added a 4-second cooldown. Previously, the trigger of Ele Nova would bypass this cooldown, so every Nova just got that 250% AoE. And it was kind of broken and definitely a bug, so they did change that. Now it doesn't work, it doesn't do anything. So the advantage is actually that we're saving 6 nodes. We don't need to path all the way there. And we take those 6 nodes and we reallocate them into AoE nodes. So overall, we do lose some AoE, but testing it, I was actually kind of surprised that it's not even noticeable. It seems a little weird. You would expect it to be much smaller, but it's still pretty much the whole screen.
Well, I
even
think
with the
you
changes.
eventually reach like an additive limit, because I don't know if you know how it works, but like the way that they do AoE in this game is really weird in general.
Okay, well that would make a lot of sense, because from what I've seen playing a lot of Frostclaw, it looks visually about the same. And if it's not enough for you, you want more AoE for whatever reason, you can get some in idols, you can get some in the passive tree.
You can use
There
the
is
helmet,
access to more.
technically. Obviously, Prismatic Gaze, but you do have access to those new rings of base crit, so you're not quote unquote forced into Prismatic Gaze, but I'm sure it's still better to run normal rings, right?
I totally forgot about the new crit rings, to be honest. I do think endgame red ring is probably the best, if you can get LP, but that's like, most people are not going to grind hard enough to do that. So the crit rings might be okay, and then you can get DR on your helm.
Yeah,
if you have the base crit.
because they're on the
in
copper
crest.
ring base too. So like you get 50% crit and then 2% base crit on each one. It's pretty pog.
Okay, I don't know how I missed that, but that might actually be a thing. I'll take a look at that after.
Yeah, because I'll be honest with you, Prismatic Gaze is a stinky helmet.
It has DR though. It has LEDR.
I'm talking about the high LP ratio it has.
Yeah. Getting a roll, the 4% crit, and having LP, it's pretty rough.
Perfect. All right. Well, if someone wants to start your Frostclaw Runemaster setup, where do they find you, and like which video?
Yeah, so you can find me on FrozenSentinel on YouTube. I have quite a few videos from the previous season. A lot of those will be still relevant, and I will be looking to do more updates in this season as I have more information. I've already put together my mana cost calculator, so you can use that to theory craft your own Frostclaw if you want to make changes. And yeah, stay tuned on my channel for more Frostclaw stuff.
Yep, and there will be a link in the description if you want to see his updated 1.1 version video, which might already get an addendum because those crit rings are stupid. All right, thanks for coming on, Sentinel.
Let's go.
All right, so for this segment, we have a spicy one for you today. We have Misha. Misha's a good friend of mine. I've known her for years. She's essentially a really good Sentinel main. She plays Sentinel literally all the time now, and we're going to talk about what she's going to be cycle starting this time around. Go ahead and introduce yourself, Misha.
Hi everyone. I've been playing Last Epoch since like 2019, and I mostly played Sentinel and a bit of Primalist. So for 1.1, I will be starting either with Forgat or with Paladin, and I will be playing Shield Rush build because Shield Rush was always like super good for bosses when you go Bleed or Ignite. And in 1.1, it got significant buffs. So one of the buffs, for example, is that we get a threshold bonus on Forgat 3 that gives us 75 bleed chance for only 5 points, and that's absolutely insane, both
Especially
for
while
leveling,
yeah.
yeah, and in game too. So this is one thing, and that thing is the reworked Crushing Blows node on Forge Guard, which now gives more damage per 1 mana cost. And Shield Rush still has, for some reason, absolutely ridiculous mana cost. So it gives like 20 to 30% more damage on top of already insane damage that we previously had. So with Paladin, the gear is very straightforward. Like on the budget, I believe that you should be able to do 500 corruption at least, or even more, because the damage is free and the defense is also really nice. You get, for example, 20% damage reduction for free just for using Shield Rush because it has a node. And then you also have a shield. So on Bleed version, I'm using Flare's Pride. Yes, so standard uniques, Flare's Pride, Thornslinger, Blood of Exile, a Bleeding Heart, and Valdez Chalice, like all the bleeding uniques. And of course, Sentinel affects are absolutely amazing for bleed. And also the important buff that came in 1.0 is that we got Healing Hands, which procs on every use of Shield Rush. And we also have Flame Burst from Holy Aura, which instantly procs because you hit with Shield Rush itself, then from Final Hit Explosion, then from Final Hit Echo, and then from Healing Hands procs. So it's 4 hits from 1 use of Shield Rush.
I'm so happy we thought of that.
Yeah. So it's absolutely insane amount. Like on the packs, you instantly proc like 5 explosions from 5 enemies, and everyone gets tons of bleeds and die almost instantly.
Perfect. So before we go too deep into this, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to close my ears. I'm going to close my eyes. I'm also going to tell any developer that's watching right now to do the same right now, while you explain the bug with the bugs and problems with Shield Rush and how to circumvent them in the arcane sorcery that you do to do so. So I'm going to just plug my ears for a moment. Go ahead.
Yeah, so sadly, it's purely online bug with Shield Rush that if you press the button too fast, your character gets stuck. This bug is not present in offline mode, so it's pure like server issue. I don't know what causes it, but it is there. And from my testing, there is a certain threshold which is 0.24 seconds. So if you press the button with interval shorter than that, it bugs out. If it's more than that, then you're good to go. And there are several ways to go around it. So for some people, it might really help to put bind on a mouse wheel, but it depends on your mouse. So with some mice, it can still bug out. And the other way is use mechanical keyboard, because mechanical keyboard can have like a small delay before you press the button, so that also helps. I personally might use macros or like a key mouse clicker. So just you need to fix the interval between which you press the button. But hopefully, maybe even 1.1 will fix it, but we'll see.
And
Right now,
of
it's
course,
still bugged.
if you are needing of this arcane sorcery, by the way, my eyes are still closed, my ears are still plugged. If you need this arcane sorcery, there will probably be a channel in my Discord that is used to propagate said arcane sorcery. Now, I'm going to go back to thinking about some other things while you explain more.
Yes, so other than that, the build feels amazing. It's great boss killer, clears monos really fast. And I guess we can talk about the other version of this
Yes,
build.
of course. Go right ahead. Now that I'm finally back and totally hadn't been listening in on that the entire time, totally am not recommending anyone use macros, as they are technically against terms of service. I'm not recommending anything, although it would be a shame if they didn't fix the shield rush bugs this patch and make us essentially force us to use said macro to be able to play the build properly. It would be a shame, wouldn't it be, huh?
Yeah, honestly, just quality of life. Like, it doesn't give you crazy DPS or anything. It's just that you don't really want to get randomly stuck, and hopefully EG will.
We're just fixing the game for them, you know? If you think about it. But yeah, that's obviously hypothetical, okay? I'm not recommending it, okay? But yeah, you may, if you want, you can talk about the Ignite version that you're talking about.
Yeah, so the other version was suggested to me by Lizard. It's a creator from Maxroll, and he suggested to start with Forge Guard and go Ignite. And the thing that we discovered is that you can use Jasper's stuff on that version. And Jasper's stuff is absolutely insane because you can use Shield Rush around 3 to 4 times per second. So on the boss, it means that you will have over 50, so like from 50 to 60 stacks of Jaspers. And that alone will give you over 1000, for example, melee ignite chance. And you're playing Shield Rush, which has the best modifiers for armament builds, and you also proc Healing Hands, and then you also stack elemental damage over time. And by the way, Jaspers is a staff, so it can roll, you can slam on it like D7, 700% increase elemental damage over time. So the damage is absolutely crazy on that version. And from my calculations, it's like significantly higher, but not that much than Bleed. But for bosses, it will be amazing in 1.1.
Perfect.
And it's also very, very budget. So they're very cheap uniques. You only need Bleeding Heart and Staff. If you got that, you're good to go.
You can Rune of Ascendance both of those too.
Yes, they're very easy to get with Rune of Ascendance.
Perfect. Well, thank you for coming on, Misha. Well, I believe we both are going to go and play Last Epoch 1.1 and not recommend macros to people. Isn't that right, Misha?
No, definitely not.
Perfect. All right. Thank you so much.
Have a nice day.
All right, now for this segment here, we actually have a longtime friend of the channel here. We have PerryThePig. He's been a very good friend of mine over the past few years, and we finally have him on for once. Perry, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hello, I'm PerryThePig. I have an extremely questionable starter that looks good, but also looks extremely sus. So let's talk about it.
All right, so what are you starting, Perry?
So we looked at a lot of builds, and frankly, if you want something that's like GigaChed, I think the Mana Sorc stuff looks great. This looks very hipster, which is appealing to me, apparently. So we're going to play a Druid that gets to swap into Swarmblade form. We're going to use a melee attack with Serpent Strike and scale the damage of Serpent Venom. I've actually put out a video talking about this before, talking about how very questionable this is in terms of scaling damage, but there's a big change coming in this patch. So the change is a node in Serpent Strike called Shattered Immunity. They changed this node to work just a little bit better. It's not only against high health targets, but it's doubled against high health targets. So this node allows us to scale poisons on the enemies and frostbites on the enemies which, if you think about it, reminds you of a node that used to exist or still does exist in Thorn Totem. Thorn Totem had this node that basically did the same thing, percent increased or percent more damage per stack of poison on the enemy, but they capped it because it was totally OP how many poisons you can get on the enemies. So this node in Serpent Strike looks like a different node that used to be completely busted. On top of that, we've got fast-acting venoms, or fast-acting toxins, I'm sorry, and it scales critical strike chance into a more multiplier. And this reminds me of a different thing that used to exist. It kind of still exists, but that is the Disintegrate, Gambler's Fallacy, and Ignivar's Head trio that used to scale Disintegrate's damage, which just now got removed in patch 1.1. So there's all these little things in Serpent Strike that look like things that have been nerfed on other builds in the past. And it looks like it might end up being good, even though it sounds like a meme on paper. We got lots of tankiness and ways to scale tankiness. We have a play style of walking around and meleeing things in Swarmblade form, which I already know that I like and I'm familiar with. And after playing so many different builds, I know that in the rest of my life, outside of being a content creator, I'm not much of a hipster, but I definitely am when it comes to selecting builds like this. I hope it's good. It looks really good. The damage numbers look good.
Perfect. Okay, so how are you going about applying all these poisons and frostbites for this specific version?
Yeah, that's a great question. So you don't really get much frostbite chance on your gear, but you can get like poison chance and bleed chance. So those are the things that we need to think about. We can take our Swarmblade form and use that to apply a bunch of poisons. Serpent Strike has some poison application chance in it already. We have tornadoes that we proc from Swarmblade form that can apply even more poisons with the lightning procs and the little storm orbs off of tornado. And then we're gonna summon a Thorn Totem on hit to get some even more poison chance application from Thorn Totem, especially on single target. There'll be a little bit of frostbite chance as well. There's variations of this build, and Dread, I know that yours is stuff that you're interested in as well for getting like more frostbite chance. But I think most of my frostbite chance will just come from bleed converted to frostbite on the melee hit of Serpent Strike from the Serpent Strike skill tree. So I'll get a tiny bit of bleed chance there, and then some frostbite chance coming in from a blessing. You could get more defense. You could swap the frostbite chance blessing for an armor blessing, but how much defense do we need? How much offense do we need? That's the kind of thing that we can only learn by being in the game, fighting the new pinnacle boss, getting practical experience with the build. But suffice it to say, the damage numbers look good. We have lots of options for how to build this. We can build this thing, we can build that thing, more damage, less damage. I think it's going to work out well for a starter build.
It's really kind of funny because we're talking about Serpent's Venom and all this and all that, but dude, since we're scaling all this the dots might just be okay.
The dots might just be okay, right? You have some trash monsters around you. You still have a tornado on top of your head. It's going to be applying ailments. You still have. I'm going to have a Maelstrom in my version, so the Maelstrom is going to deal some damage. You're going to have hopefully an enjoyable play.
And you're scaling it just how you're scaling Serpent's Venom. So
right with damage over time, right?
Yeah.
So
exactly.
hopefully the single target damage is through the roof. If the single target damage is mid, then this build probably not worthwhile because the rest of the build looks kind of mid too. But hopefully the single target damage is astronomical. So we'll see.
Perfect. And one thing I want to mention, since you're going to be playing this build as well, and since you're playing Swarmblade, which has pretty good rage sustain as long as you're critting, right? Which you're probably going to be doing, right?
Yeah, and crit even scales my damage over time. It's perfect.
Now, what's really cool is eventually, once you finally do kill that pinnacle boss, I'm going to assume that's where this comes from. Seed of Echidricil, if you don't know, people are listening, I've mentioned it multiple times now, but it does work while you're transformed, and it does work with their rage as well. So that might end up being an insane way of adding a lot of extra tankiness to your build.
So they told us that mana is the exact same as rage for all intents and purposes, except for mana regeneration and except for Kulnavar's claim. Yep. So if it works the way that we imagine that it works, using the mind over matter or damage dealt to mana before health helmet that's no longer locked behind being a Sorc or behind being a mage, you can now use it on any class. If that works the way that we think it does, it looks really strong on Druid transform builds.
Perfect. All right, well, Perry, thank you for coming on. I'm going to be leaving down a link in the description where you're going to be able to see his his video on his cycle starter also as well. He's gonna be streaming it, so if you have questions, literally just pop over and ask him. He'll be streaming the whole time.
Boy, I hope it works.
All right, thank you, Perry.
See ya.
All right, for this segment, we have another mana stacking sorcerer lover here. This time it's going to be Pinching. Pinching's a good friend of mine. I've known him for a few years now. Go ahead and introduce yourself, Pinching.
Yeah, my name's PinchingLoaf on Twitch and YouTube. I've been playing last Epoch for many years now. I tend to focus mainly on build creation and doing build guides on YouTube and just streaming that process with my community. So that's kind of been my main focus. I've been working a lot lately on the mana stacking sorcerer coming up for the new cycle. Just put out a build guide here recently for that. And yeah, coming into the new cycle, I'll probably be streaming a good 18-20 hours a day, just no-lifing it and going from there.
Perfect. All right, what are you going to be cycle starting this time around? You want to give me a brief explanation?
Yeah, so after long theory crafting sessions, I decided to go with a mana stacking sorcerer, specifically centered around using Static Orb and Lightning Blast, scaling spark charges for area clear, and then using the new wand that I'm going to slaughter how to say it. I believe it is the Tribo Electra wand, that basically turns your Static Orb into an auto bomber type playstyle. Whenever you evade, you cast Static Orb creates spark charges, everything goes boom.
Perfect. Okay, so of course, other than Tribo Electra, you want to talk about the Sorc changes that benefit this build specifically?
Yeah, the biggest node obviously is Archmage coming out of the end of the sorcerer tree. Just being able to get a whole bunch of your mana costs refunded back to you, depending on what values of maximum mana you have. So at 1,000 max mana, you refund 20% of your mana costs 100% of the time. And so just stacking a massive amount of mana to be used both as a defense and an offense, it pairs really nicely with the Static Orb node that gives you increased more damage multiplier based on your maximum mana. So that's the biggest change in the node. There's also a bunch of quality of life for getting ward stacking from also stacking your mana pool. It's giving you ward per second based on max mana, giving you ward decay threshold for your intelligence that you're going to be scaling for the spark charges. And then the other big node is the Arcane Current, just being able to get 100% spark charge chance on skills that cost more than 40 mana. So just a bunch of the new kind of point bonuses on the already existing passive skills, and then some of the new ones they added for Sorcerer.
Perfect. So that's great. And now what I'm looking at your planner here, and I'm really happy to see this, but finally, we have finally been saved from the menace that is Prismatic Gaze. I see that you're running double Phantom Grip. Oh my goodness.
I hate running those helmets every build. So, yeah.
Go ahead, explain Phantom Grips for the viewer here.
Yeah. It's just a super good universal ring. So it's a new ring coming out that was intended for Forge Guard, but we basically just ignore all of those stats, and it gives you up to 2% base crit on the ring, and then on top of that, it gives you percentile mana, which is insane to get on any piece of gear that's not like body armor or helmet. So just those two stats alone make it worth it. Also, it's a level 14 ring, so it's going to be really easy to obtain early on as long as you're engaging in the new mechanic, and it's going to be really easy to get legendary potential on, so I can slam all the stats I want on.
It does have a 50 LP level, by the way.
Yeah.
Yeah, so like 2 LP is going to be common, but that's about it.
Oh, yeah. So, yeah, I think it's going to be pretty easy to kind of get the ball rolling for your crit chance without having to sacrifice one of your most sought after pieces, your helmet. So
yeah, being able to actually run stats on my helmet. Oh my goodness.
Right.
Do you think the +5 to tendrils on Static Orb is going to be very impactful or not? Or
yeah, it's going to be, I think, pretty big. The main thing is because I'm using Enigma and I'm scaling spark charges. That's just a whole bunch of small little hits that are going to be splintering out to a bunch of mob packs, just applying these little detonating timers of lightning explosions everywhere.
Perfect. And I see that you're doing orbital fulmination. That's probably going to be really good with the evade version, where you just like evade and summon one around you that surrounds you. That's going to be a really good thing, huh?
Yeah, the main purpose for that is we're spending so much of our mana per cast of Static Orb, because it's costing 20% of your overall mana pool. So that's 200 mana when you're at 1,000 mana or whatever. You might as well get the most bang for your buck. So just having it orbit around you with the Fulmination node just allows you to hit targets multiple times with those massive meaty Static Orbs and apply those spark charges a few times. And so I think you'll just get the most bang for your buck doing that.
Perfect. All right. So, do you think the single target is going to be good enough? I know that Lightning Blast got nerfed. You can't run closed circuit anymore, so you have to run the single target version. How do you feel about that?
Hey man, too soon.
Rip closed circuit, man.
I know that was like my main build last season. I'm getting nonstop comments about that. So yeah, no, I think it's gonna be totally fine. Most of your AoE is gonna come from spark charges, and then most of the single target is actually gonna come from Static Orb, I believe. Lightning Blast is mainly just a tool to be detonating spark charges, getting a few more of those hits in, and then also with how I have a Static Orb spec, it's gonna help the mana sustain a lot more when I'm in those single target scenarios.
Yeah,
so
it's gonna
just
refund,
gonna be the filler.
right? It's gonna refund.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mhm.
Cool. All right. Perfect. Well, Mr. Pinching, thank you for coming on and adding another mana stacking sorcerer to this list.
Sorry, I'm not hipster on this one. I thought I was cool until you let me know. So
No, it's okay. I just think it's funny. That's all.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you, Jed. Thanks for having me on.
Yep, anytime. Thank you. Okay, for this segment, we're going to be talking about another mana stacking sorcerer. Imagine that. So this time around, it's going to be Pokerkids concept here. Pokerkid, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hey, I'm Pokerkid. I've been playing Last Epoch for a little over a year now. And yeah, with the new changes to Sorcerer coming in, I've decided to, much like many other people, I've decided to do a mana stacker. And this time I'm using Static Orb, and basically using that to abuse all the mana stacking for more damage and, hopefully end up obliterating the meta like many other mana stackers will probably do.
So I see that for this one, you're focusing on a sorcerer here.
Mm-hmm.
With a Static Orb. Like, you want to explain how that works?
Yeah, so Static Orb is very strong for mana stackers, and it was actually something that was played a long time ago with the Shattered Crown mana stacking with Charged Ground, and where you would basically make your orb cost so much mana that it would just kill everything, like one-shot everything. I think there was an old video of someone getting to like 3,000 corruption doing it. They ended up nerfing that back in the day, and mana stacking kind of like died as a result, along with Sorcerer being pretty bad. But now that Sorcerer is getting a full rework, and mana stacking is getting a lot more utility to it other than damage, I do think that this Static Orb will end up being a lot better as a result, even though it may not do as much damage. It'll be much tankier and much more flexible to use.
So the first thing I see on this planner is a Wall of Nothing. Do you want to explain why you're using a Wall of Nothing for me?
Yeah, so this is going to be for the endgame build. The reason Wall is really good here is because all of the ward that we're going to be generating from mana spend gain as ward, because each Static Orb will be costing, let's say, like 150 to 200 mana each cast. The Wall basically lets us build Endurance Threshold, which gives us a bunch of Ward Decay Threshold, and that Ward Decay Threshold will basically increase the amount of ward we can generate and keep. Especially with the ward changes recently, with it being quadratic instead of linear, we'll be able to maintain much more ward by using a Wall of Nothing, and in result, we'll be a lot tankier with it as well. It's a great unique, very fantastic.
Perfect. It's nice to see it being used. It's actually kind of pog, because I was a little questionable about it. Just a little
Yeah,
bit.
I was questionable about it too, but I think Ward Decay Threshold is just going to be so strong this patch. With
Especially on mana
ward.
spent gain as ward, because you can just fill it up when you're not, when you're sitting around and stuff. So another interesting pick I see here, obviously not just interesting because Arcane Ascendance. What are you using that for?
So this was actually a last pick. Originally, I was doing a completely different route with how I was going to maintain mana, but Arcane Ascendance ended up being really strong for Static Orb, and especially with the recent changes to mana, because what we're basically it allows us to do is allows us to cast more static orbs in between us using our focus, right? So normally, like I could only maybe cast like 5 or 6 static orbs before I had to use focus. Here I can do like 12 or 13, assuming like all the procs and everything from Archmage as well. And what this allows us to do is that we have more wiggle room in terms of like wait time before focus comes back. And it basically allows the build to play much more smoothly when you're basically rotating between spamming static orb, using focus, spamming static orb, using focus.
Perfect. All right. Now, another thing that I wanted to mention as well is I see that you're utilizing double Juralus star dials. Do you want to explain that for the audience here?
Yeah, so this is a really fantastic ring in general for any sort of mana stacker, and I believe many people who are going to use mana stackers and use mana spent gained as ward are going to be using these rings, or at least this or Font of the Erased.
Good thing they're so.
The reason it's so
good things they're so common, huh?
Yeah, good thing they're common. So yeah, one of the cool things is first of all, it's a guaranteed drop from Jewelry, a 1 OP one at least. You can literally go to the tier 1 dungeon and just have it drop and then just roll the ring to see if you get the intelligence or endurance threshold slam on it.
Just
and
so
what
you
it basically
know,
allows,
if you do that, you don't get the extra LP chance. Just so people know that. So you can't it wouldn't be easy to get like a 2 LP.
You can't. If you want the 2 LP, you'll probably have to do.
But that would be an
4,
easy budget way of getting 1 LP once, huh?
Yeah, so if you look at my other planner, actually, the budget starter planner, I use 2 Drolra star dials with like a T5 intelligence roll on it because it's just so easy to get. Like on average, you do 8 dungeon runs and you're guaranteed, or not guaranteed, but you have a good chance of getting.
So you're just gonna like use your traversal skill and then just spam, right?
Yeah, exactly. So use traversal skill like Flame Rush and then just put out Arcane Ascendant, spam Static Orb. Wait till it empties, then use focus, and then kind of just repeat the process.
Yeah, a lot more of a bursty setup, huh?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's very much focused on just being able to burst down like big bosses while still having like good enough AoE and clear for monoliths.
Speaking of clear, Tribo Electra, are you excited?
Oh yeah, this is it's got a lot of attention, and for good reason. The lightning level spells is just like so fantastic.
That's gonna be so good for so many different builds, not just this.
Yeah,
by the way.
Especially that alone because it's so point hungry, and being able to get those extra 2 to 3 points is fantastic.
Dude, imagine being a strength stacking werebear, right? Okay,
and
you just evade, just do static orbs. Oh my god! And it doesn't have a cooldown other than Oh my god, the proc bear is gonna be a real dream. But continue.
I think proc bear was actually another thing I was looking at that looks very fun, especially with the new sword and the spell damage you can get from strength and to double up.
At the very least, really it will be entertaining.
Mm-hmm, for sure.
Yeah. Do you want to explain to the audience why this might be good, though?
Why it's good? Well, I think this will be good because it'll probably do a bazillion damage. Especially looking at the more damage multiplier here, if you have 1,000 mana, you're looking at 250% more damage from mana charged. You have, again, about like a 120 mana cost with Arcane Ascendance up, so you're looking at 240% more damage from Aura Charge Detonation, 90% more damage from Volatile Outburst, just more damage nodes everywhere. And all of this combined with the multi-hit from Scatter Blast and the hits and the explosion from Static Orb adding up to like, I think probably around 600% damage effectiveness. It's just gonna like hit like an absolute truck, especially when you can effectively spam, 10, 11 of them until you have to recharge with focus. It'll just absolutely melt bosses.
It's nice to see that this mana playstyle is finally going to be utilized for once.
Yeah, especially with how much Sorcerer has been in the dumps.
Yeah.
I always found it really funny when I made that old Sorcerer Ignite build, and I was like, this is just like barely better than if I just ran a Rune Master.
I know, right?
And then now I can finally look at this. I'm like, I can play this, and I don't have to feel bad for not playing Rune Master.
Yeah, and it's funny because like Rune Master might still be really good. That's the funny part.
Yeah, no, it's still fantastic. Like even on the tree, I still take some good notes here.
Yeah.
But it's not as oppressive
As it once was, yeah.
Once was.
All right, well, Poker Kid, thank you for coming on and talk about your mana stacking static orb sorcerer. I hope good luck to you, and I hope to be able to do a build showcase with you later on if you manage to do this well.
Yeah, no, I definitely hope to push this to endgame along with a couple other builds, and yeah, I think this patch is going to be really spicy in terms of build variety and kind of the crazy things people come up with.
Perfect. Well, I'll talk to you later, Poker Kid. Thank you.
All right, thanks for having me on, Dread.
All right, so for this segment, I'm actually going to be talking to Snap here. He is going to be cycle starting a big Last Epoch multiplayer group. So go ahead and introduce yourself, Snap.
Hey guys, I'm Snap. I do group ARPG content. So, in PoE, we do big 6-man groups, and Last Epoch, we put together the 4-man group. For this cycle this time around, we're going to be playing 2 supports and 2 carries. Of course, I made a video regarding the mana stacker we're going to be playing, as well as all of the supports we're going to be playing. This time around, we're going to be starting a Paladin support, as well as a Void Knight support. The reason for that, of course, is just Volatile Reversal. I'm sure you're a big fan of that.
Oh yeah, definitely.
And the other 2 carries are going to be mana stacking sorcerers. If you're unaware, on the patch, sorcerers got a huge laundry list of buffs, and it took an already pretty good build that had proven itself. And it kind of took it over the edge in my eyes. So that's like the build that we're going for this time around.
Do you want to explain why you're specifically using Volatile Reversal so that if a dev is listening to this, they'll know why?
Well, I know Volatile Reversal is slated for changes in 1.2. They talked about that, but essentially Volatile Reversal has a portion when you hit the mob that makes it take increased damage taken, which functions as a more multiplier, and it stacks. It stacks with itself with multiple casts, and it stacks among party members with multiple people casting it. So the more CDR you get on gear, and the more CDR you get from having a Void Knight in the party, it basically just ramps your damage to the moon, and it increases your single target, by 3, 4, 5x or something like that. It's a really good skill.
So I know I didn't ask this of all the other people, but since you're going to be group playing, what are your thoughts on the changes to the corruption scaling in terms of the gold stuff, the difficulty? What do you think?
So in terms of the gold stuff, I think that nerf was pretty warranted. The gold gain you got at super high corruption was just super noticeable and honestly kind of out of whack compared to all the other stuff you got from high corruption. I still think if you're capable, you're going to be incentivized to go up to, 1,000, maybe 2,000, however much corruption you can safely handle, because the amount of exalteds you get is pretty noticeable. You start seeing more double exalted T6s, you see a lot more T7s. So it is definitely worth it to go up even without the XP and without the gold gain. But now the main draw, I think, is going to be the number of exalteds you start, dropping. It's going to be the main change there. And then in terms of the catch-up mechanics in multiplayer, I think that it's going to be much more healthy if you play in a party for, however long, and you push up to, let's say, 1,000 corruption. You've done a long multiplayer, play session or group thing that you do. Afterwards, you're going to have a lot of leftover gaze stacks, which you can then consume very rapidly to raise your corruption. Maybe in just a few hours, you can go, I think, from, let's say, 100 corruption to probably 1,000, honestly, if you're just rushing to the bosses, because you're going to be getting plus 50 each time, essentially. So I think it's going to be very quick if you want to catch up an account to get that high corruption if you need to.
Perfect. So another thing I want to talk about is, so for the mana stacking Sorc specifically, right?
Yeah.
What about it is the most eye-catching thing that made you think oh, this is the build I need a group play with? This is the carry now. What made you think that?
The damage is obviously super crazy on this build. The scaling you get from mana in terms of the defenses and the ward generation is sky high. It has Flame Ward. I'm a big fan of Flame Ward. I honestly find it tough to play other archetypes or classes because they just don't have Flame Ward. That button makes you immortal. So playing Mage was kind of right up my alley because I played a Rune Master last league. And then also, I think the new unique helmet, the mana gain, mana taken as
Yggdrasil.
That one looks super enticing. I have a couple ideas about how to use it. I just haven't quite fully fleshed it out yet. But it's definitely going to be something I'm going to be messing around with. I think that helmet's going to be super strong.
By the way, for people listening, and if you didn't know, Snap, that helmet does work with Rage. It has been confirmed.
That's super cool as well, actually.
Yes, it is. It makes a lot of things viable. But yeah, the mana stacking Sorc is gonna look very fun this patch. I severely doubt it will survive 1.3 because already that what we're seeing, right? It's crazy. But go ahead.
So the really cool thing that also got added that I don't think a lot of people are talking about is the spark charge nodes on Sorc are just crazy. The guaranteed spark charge on mana cost of skills of 40 or more is just absolutely bonkers. And because you're proccing spark charges on stuff like Glacier, if you're using Harbinger of Stars, you're essentially getting double the amount of meteors that you were getting before because it's just proccing an extra spark charge on literally everything you hit. So you're getting double the meteors that you had before. So your AoE, meteor explosions are getting doubled. So that's going to feel super good, I think.
Dude, it's going to be so nice seeing Meteor actually used in a meta capacity. I have been playing this game for 4 years now, and this is going to be the first patch where I get to say, yes, Meteor's actually good.
Hopefully that's the hope. Hopefully the, Meteor Harbinger of Stars actually gets its place in the limelight for just a little bit, I guess.
Just a little bit at the very least, right? They've already nerfed the belt enough times. Who needs to nerf it again? I'll be honest, if they're going to nerf anything, they're probably going to nerf just like mana values on gear, because being able to get to like 2,000 mana now with Merchant's Guild is going to be kind of nutty, right?
I think the archetype's cool. We'll see how it plays out.
Yeah, I think the archetype's cool cool too. I think it deserves a place in last Epoch. I'm just saying it's going to be really funny to click the focus button and go from 0 mana to 1,000. It's going to be funny.
Yeah, the focus buffs are super good as well. I've been definitely planning on using that, but yeah, I think I'm excited. I'm excited for all the new stuff. So
yeah, I'm excited too. Thank you for coming on Snap to talk about your stuff. Do you want to tell people where they can find you?
I'm twitch.tv/SnapOW, SnapOW. For some reason, I have Overwatch in my tag, but I digress. And then it's just Snap on YouTube. So.
Perfect. And there will be a link in the description below to his video where he goes in full detail of what he's starting next cycle with his friends. All right. Thank you. Thank you, Snap. All right, so for this section, we actually have Trickster on. Trickster is a longtime friend of mine. He's been playing a lot of different rogue builds, and whenever I need help with a rogue setup, he's the first one I ask. So it's nice to have him on today. Trickster, how are you doing today?
I'm doing good. Thanks for having me. Yep, I'm Trickster. I pretty much play rogue exclusively. I used to play marksman only, but then I switched to rogue in general after the nerfs in 0.9, and now I'm just trying to cover as many builds, ideas, or just in general, like content for rogue for you guys.
Perfect. So, of course, what are you going to be cycle starting?
I'm going to play Multishot marksman actually, since it got buffed. Like not a lot, but I think Multishot is such a fan favorite skill, and I'm just trying to figure out like what's the balance right now for Multishot, also compared to the Flurry channel version. And yeah, I'm usually not following the meta that much. I like to inspire people with new builds or just try it out. And Multishot for me also was always like a favorite back in D2, D3.
Yeah, I'm a fan of Multishot. I actually played it recently as a cycle starter with the Smoke Bomb Traversal attack, and it was a very good time for the most part. I had difficulties here and there, mainly with dealing with the realization that Blast Rain is just overpowered as hell, but...
Yeah, that's true. I mean, Explosive Trap in general, yeah, still super OP.
Exactly. So, you want to just, for someone who's new to the build, just give like a overall view of how Multishot works and how you're scaling it?
So pretty much on Multishot, the most powerful node in the tree is the Giant Slayer node. This can shotgun, and pretty much what we try to do is to stack as many arrows as possible. I think at the end you can get 17 arrows if we combine it with the Drelker's bow, with the passives, and then all 17 arrows can hit the same target. Multishot was never really known for like huge single target damage, but with Giant Slayer it's pretty much the only way to compete in endgame. And yeah, this is pretty much like the whole concept. Drelker as a bow, Morning Frost, deck stacking, so we have like physical and cold damage as our main damage. For the marksman, pretty much the passive tree, we got a lot of more multipliers now. So in combination with the increased damage per arrow with Multishot, I think now we can actually get pretty decent numbers. So this is just what I try out, and which is pretty much the concept about show. So it's just self-cast, multi-shot, no channel flurry version anymore. I will compare them, but I think the channel or the self-cast version is actually better now.
Yeah, I think if you use channel now with the changes and everything, you probably should be playing like a Reign of Winter or like Dragon Song variant, because like
Exactly.
now with the direct damage nerf to multi-shot, it makes them like you could also go technically bleed flurry multi-shot technically if you really wanted to, because like all of the nodes that got nerfed were hit damage nodes specifically for the most part. So like technically that version got buffed, but I haven't played that, so I can't really like talk about it much. But yeah, definitely channeled flurry multi-shot took a big hit, which is weird because like I'll be honest, it would have been nice to play normal flurry multi-shot before all the bugs actually got fixed for it. It'd be nice to play it in an unbugged state.
Yeah, that's true. But probably they were just not able to fix this whole channel flurry stuff, so maybe they just tried to do like a rework there to make self-cast in the flurry version. To bring it in a perfect balance. But before it was just way too broken with the whole phase in 0.9, 1.0. So I think the whole balancing direction was good with this new direct use that they put in for a couple of nodes. And I also love the channel version, but like the self-cast version was never that good as the flurry version, and we already complained about this because it's just like a classic. You want to just like cast it without the channel version, move around. I mean, you know it as well. If we
Standing
stand
still sucks.
Exactly. Like especially for marksmen, we still have shitty defenses, and now we just need like full burst damage to survive with marksmen. This is pretty much the go-to.
Yeah,
Or you
of
play Hail of
course.
Arrows.
Well, thankfully, with the Pinnacle boss coming in, and with all of the changes that are coming in, what's really nice is, if you don't know, the people watching this right now, the average amount of corruption you should be aiming for the max amount of efficiency of favor per hour, as long as you're playing a build with good clear speed, which multi-shot definitely is around 600 corruption. And also with the Pinnacle boss coming in, where it's like a set difficulty as well, multi-shot benefits from this immensely, because multi-shot's problem was like scaling its damage past that point, but it no longer needs to feel pressured for doing that, because not only you're not getting more gold over a certain point, you're also not getting more you're not having to deal with big pinnacle bosses and stuff like that at higher corruption. So overall, I think this is a good change for marksman, because it always felt awful for that, especially with like the damage over time and stuff like that, scaling with the corruption. So overall, I think multi-shot marksman's a good choice. So for people to find your build, where can they find it?
It's pretty much on my channel. I lately just do YouTube content only, so if you wanna like follow this build, I will probably also bring out some daily videos about the progress, and then definitely also a build guide. I do mostly build guides on LE tools. Already put a couple of them out there. So if you're interested in my content, just follow me on YouTube or just watch at some builds at Last Epoch tools.
Perfect. That'll be down in the description as well if you need to click on that as well. Thank you, Trickster, for coming around to watch. To watch Multishot maybe be good again. So hopefully that's good, right?
Yep. Thanks for having me, man.
Yep. Anytime. All right, for this segment, this time, we're going to be talking with a longtime friend here. I've known him for years now, probably at least 4+ at this point. I'm not entirely sure, but he is a very well-known Necromancer player in the community, and he's usually the person to be scoffing at the Necros I usually make, mainly because I try very wacky stuff, as he focuses more on the minion aspect of Necromancer. So go ahead and introduce yourself, Zeckar.
Yes, hello, my name is Zeckar, and I like to play Necro. I play a lot of minions, mostly Necro, and I enjoy it. I'm a minion enjoyer, and today I'm going to be going over my starter with you guys.
And what's that going to be?
It's going to be an Explode Necromancer.
So you want to go through the concept of the build real quick for people who are not aware of what you're playing?
Sure. So we're going to be playing Skeletal Mages. I opted to play all 5 of them versus an Archmage. I'm doing Death Knights as they proc the Profane Ablation, which is the skill that they have in their skill tree to pop other skeletons, like warriors and vanguards. I'm using that to pop those minions, at a fast rate and get mana back from my summoned skeletons, some ward, and yeah, hopefully that'll help me breeze through empowered and hopefully take down some bosses.
Yeah, so how
but-
does the oblation work exactly? I know that they reworded it, but how does it work exactly?
Yeah, so now whenever you summon skeletons, it procs off your warriors, vanguards, or rogues. And essentially, as soon as you summon one, your mage will target it, explode it, and essentially like sacrifice it, but it's a necrotic sacrifice with 70 flat damage and 350% effectiveness for added damage. And yeah, blows up the skeletons. They give you mana back, they give you ward, and you just keep spamming skeletons because you can sustain it with the mana efficiency you get from summoned skeletons and the mana back that you get.
Yeah, so I also see that they made it so it works with skeleton vanguards now. That must be pretty good with summon volatile zombie, right?
Yep, it is pretty good. I opt to just do the passive node that gives you vanguards on minion kill. You can run the node in volatile zombies to get some vanguards as well whenever they get procced, because also in this build you're running volatile zombies and they have a 30% chance to get procced whenever your skeleton dies. So your skeleton dies, procs a zombie, and then that blows up. It gives you some ward as well. It also does another big explosion for 600% damage effectiveness as well. And yeah, it's pretty nice.
So do you want to go over how you're keeping your skeletons alive? Because a lot of people complain about minion survivability in general.
Yeah, so early on, the ideal way to keep minions alive, at least up to empowered, is minion health regen. It falls off in empowered, and this is when you want to get things like crit avoid, so ribbons of blood, or some sort of mechanism to, prevent your minions from being crit. Another good thing is leech, which can be found in their skill trees, a very small amount. So another big thing, especially for skeletal mages, is Grey Merchant, I believe is a node, and that is the one in which you get 15% of their maximum health on crit, and we will be going crit. So anytime they crit, they'll just be getting 15% of their maximum health, and then we just scale minion health from there.
And I see that you have summon wraiths. You want to talk us through why you have those?
Yep, so Summon Wraiths is more of a filler skill. Originally I did have Infernal Shade, and I was casting those on all my skeletal mages for more attack cast speed, some movement, haste, and armor shred. But I think the safest route is just to get a little bit extra damage, some consistent damage from Wraiths, and just having those. And you don't have to worry about micromanaging Infernal Shade, don't have to worry about, if you're in Lich's Scorn, managing that, Harvest if you're in Apogees. There's a lot of things I don't like to manage a lot, so I kind of go for the more lazy route, which is just having some permanent minions and, pressing 1 or 2 buttons here and there, which that's the route I went with.
Oh yeah, everyone loves the lazy minion builds for sure.
Yes, I do prefer less actions.
I get low-key harassed on a daily basis about oh, I want a lazy minion build. I want a lazy minion build. I'm like, dude, the reason why I like playing the active minion builds because big damage, man. Big damage.
There's some benefit to the damage, but I can agree it is fun seeing those big damage numbers, but it's short-lived because you have to get all that stuff working to.
Now, in the next planner here, I see the experimental one here. I'm going to assume you explained this in the video, correct?
I go over it a little bit. I don't go into it in detail just because it is a work in progress.
Well, I just want to make sure they're going to be able to see what I'm talking about here. But essentially, if you don't know, in one of his planners he sent me a Necromancer with World Splitter in it. You want to explain this other experimental version for the people listening in?
Yes, so essentially with that version, I'm looking at a Necro mana stacker. So I just went for all the items that can get the most mana on it. Still a lot of stuff to work out in that build. So it is very much a proof of concept. Essentially, with that, we can get there's a node in Chaos Bolts that gives you 1 spell damage for your minions per 20 max mana. So with 2,000 mana, if we ever get to that number, theoretically, would be 100 flat damage.
And there's also a node inside Summon Skeletal Mage that gives you 5% more per. How much is that giving you?
Yes, 5% more damage per 25 max mana, so that comes out to about 400%.
So this is going
More
to do
damage.
a lot of damage. Is that what you're saying?
That's what I'm hoping. We're gonna test it out, and let's hope the damage is good, because the defenses aren't looking too great. But if the damage is somewhat good, we can maybe lower down the, maybe it's not worth pumping so much into mana. We can lower it a little bit,
Yeah.
get some more defenses, flesh out. But that's to be discovered, and I'm excited to that's why I'm starting the starter, and why I kind of want to play with Necro, because there's new toys to mess with and do some testing on. So
Yeah.
we will be doing that.
A Necromancer with World Splitter. I never thought I'd see the day.
Hey, there's no increased mana on Acolyte. It's
No,
all
yeah, that's true.
Sentinel and Mage for the most part, and also I think a little bit on Primalist. But
You do have the rings, which give you the increased max mana as well now.
yes, and I do have plenty of other builds I can swap to. Golemmancer, Volatile Zombies. Since we have more flat crit with these rings and have more access to those, I think a lot of more crit-based minion builds will be shining through in Necromancer, Beastmaster, and such. So should be pretty great.
Perfect. Well, thank you for coming on and talking about your starter, Zeckar. I am going to let you go now so that you can work on your mana Necromancer. I'm sure I will look at the planner as well and try to assist you with your defenses. But thank you for coming on.
We'll need the help. Thank you, Dread, so much for having me. And good luck, guys, on your cycle start.